Hello everyone, good evening. Welcome to BAJIRAO IAS Academy, the Hindu news analysis. So today is 16th May 2024 and we have a few important articles to discuss in this lecture. So like every day we have been discussing the practice questions for prelims. Now yesterday I've given one practice question. So the question was, recently Mount Ibu was erupted, spewing a huge ash tower of 5 kilometers into the atmosphere, and it is located in which of the following countries? Now these type of questions are very frequently asked by UPSC and other state PSC examinations also. So therefore such questions are very important. So this Mount Ibu is located in Indonesia. So the correct answer for this question is option C, Indonesia. Now, so let's try to briefly understand what exactly is this Mount Ibu. So this Mount Ibu is a volcanic mountain in Indonesia. So we all knew about that. So it is located in the North Maluku province of Indonesia, and it was erupted on Monday. And with the volcanic eruption of this Mount Ibu, it has resulted in spewing of thick grey ash and dark clouds up to 5,000 meters into the sky. So that is around 5 kilometers into the sky for 5 minutes. So this is about the Mount Ibu. Now why we very often see that Indonesia has the most of the volcanoes? It is because Indonesia, an archipelago, so that is having around 27 crore population. Right, so Indonesia has around 120 active volcanoes. Now why Indonesia has most of the volcanoes? It is because Indonesia as an archipelago located in the Pacific Ring of Fire. Now you very often come across this Pacific Ring of Fire, and this Pacific Ring of Fire is a volcanically active region, and that is located in and around the Pacific Ocean. So this is in fact like a horseshoe shaped a series of seismic fault lines, and that is they are located around the Pacific Ocean. And in fact Indonesia is also located on this Pacific Ring of Fire, and because of that reason Indonesia sees a very frequent volcanic eruptions, and the recent one is Mount Ibu. I hope it is clear for everyone. Now let's try to today also we have one more practice question. So the question is, recently ethylene oxide residues are mostly seen in use. Now which of the following statements are correct about this ethylene oxide residues? So please understand, these type of questions are also very important, and you very often see such questions UPSC is being asked. So therefore I have given 4 options. One was pesticide residue in food items, clean energy generated from waste to energy, option C emissions from thermal power plants, and option D harmful gas released from the microplastics. So please try to answer such this question in the comment section, and I'll be providing you the correct answer in tomorrow's class. Now let's try to discuss few important articles, and the first article that we are going to start this discussion is with Delhi's mounting waste crisis. Now please understand, according to 2011 census, Delhi has around 1.7 crore population, and in fact Delhi is one of the metropolitan city, and it is heavily crowded or heavily populated city with a high population density. So when we have high population density in any city, what will happen? So it also generates a huge amount of waste. But the problem is that the Delhi Municipal Corporation and other municipal bodies which are looking into the waste management lack the capacity to manage the waste which is being generated by the people. So therefore this has resulted in a huge landfill of waste. So they very often look like the mountains of the waste. So waste is just dumped in these landfills, and therefore these landfills have actually threatening the health of the people, and at the same time they are also contaminating the environment, at the same time the natural resources. And that is the problem with this landfill sites, or openly dumping the waste into these landfill sites. So please also understand, when when the waste is dumped openly without treating it, so it also very often becomes breeding ground for mosquitoes. So that could also spread several diseases among the among within the people in a densely populated city like Delhi. Now briefly understand the context of this article. So the context is that recently Supreme Court actually criticized Delhi's waste management. So it was not a proper waste management. Most of the waste, even though collected, it is not recycled, and the waste is just dumped in these open landfill sites and having several negative consequences on the health and environment. And that is why the Supreme Court of India actually criticized Delhi government for its ineffectiveness over the waste management. However, according to some estimates, Delhi capital has more than 3,800 tons. So around 3,800 tons of waste is not treated every day. So that is in fact a huge amount of waste which is untreated every day. So according to estimates, Delhi generates around 15,000 tons of waste every day. Out of 15,000 tons of waste, 3,800 tons of waste is not treated properly, and simply the waste is dumped in the landfill sites, and that is having or threatening the public health and the environment. So this was the context of this article. Now we'll just try to understand some facts with respect to the waste management system of Delhi. Now if you look at the population, total population of Delhi, as I have already told you that in 2011 census, the total population of Delhi was 1.7 crore. But now we are in 2024. So therefore the population of Delhi, according to latest estimates, it is around 2.32 crore. So we can say that the population is almost increased. So earlier it was just 1.7 crore, but now it is 2.32 crore population in Delhi. So therefore that is actually a huge increase in the population, and at the same time it has also been creating a lot of pressure on the existing infrastructure in those urban areas. So therefore let's look at some facts with respect to the waste being generated here. So the average per capita generation of waste in Delhi is around 1.6 kg per person per annum. So this is the amount of waste which is being generated by every individual every day in Delhi. Now if you calculate based on this particular waste per capita waste generated, it is around 13,000 tons per day of waste is being generated every day. So understand, 13,000 tons of waste is being generated every day, and it is adding up to around 42 lakh tons of waste which is being generated every year or every annum. So such a huge and massive amounts of data is being generated every year in Delhi. And however, if you look at the infrastructure, if you look at the waste management of waste treatment systems which are already put in place in Delhi, they are inadequate, they are insufficient to manage or treat the waste, and that is where around 3,800 tons of waste which is not treated properly. And at the same time, the city's population in future is also expected to grow to around 2.85 crore by the year 2031. So therefore there will be an enormous increase in the population of Delhi by 2031, and the increase in population will lead to the further increase in the generation of total waste to around 17,000 tons per day. However, 90% of the waste which is being generated in the city is actually collected by 3 municipal corporations. So one was the Municipal Corporation of Delhi, and second the Delhi Cantonment Board, and third New Delhi Municipal Corporation. So these 3 municipal corporations together have been collecting around 90% of the waste which is being generated in the city of Delhi. So even though we have understood all these facts with respect to the waste which is generated in Delhi, there are certain challenges which have been plaguing the waste management system of Delhi. Now, what are those challenges? The first and foremost challenge with respect to the waste collection, waste management and recycling is lack of waste segregation at source. Now, waste is generated at the commercial spaces, and at the same time the households will also generate a lot of waste. But when you don't segregate the waste into wet waste, dry waste, plastic waste and degradable waste or biodegradable waste, so you have to generate the waste into different categories. When you segregate the waste into different categories at the source, it will become very easy for the waste management system to separate the waste accordingly and treat it properly. So that is how we can further augment the waste management capabilities. But the problem here is that there is a lack of waste segregation at the source, and that is one of the key challenge here. And apart from that, people actually lack awareness about the waste segregation at source, whether it is the household level or at the commercial establishments. So people don't do this because they lack awareness about the segregation of the waste. So are you segregating the waste at your houses when you are giving the waste to the waste collection people? So you're not doing this because there is no awareness about the segregation of waste at source. So this has been actually resulting in unprocessed mixed waste actually entering these landfill sites. Additionally, the waste processing plants actually require a huge amount of land, because you cannot establish these waste management plants or waste management facilities in a smaller land. Therefore, it requires a land of around 30 to 40 acres. And in a city like Delhi, the paucity or the availability of land is a biggest challenge. So that is one of the biggest challenge that Delhi has been facing. And since there is a paucity of lands, we cannot set up such a huge plants to treat or manage waste. And this challenge actually leading to significant portion of waste which is being left untreated or which is not treated. And after that, the public awareness of the proper waste management practices is also lacking. So there is no awareness among the public or limited awareness among the public, and that is also one of the factor which has been leading to the poor capacities of the waste management, and it has been contributing to littering and improper disposal of waste. So those habits are being generated or developed by the people because lack of awareness over the waste management. Now, which divert the Municipal Corporation of Delhi's attention towards clearing open points rather than processing the wet waste which is being generated. Now, see, understand, the wet waste can actually be used for generation of energy. Dry waste can be used for generation of energy through processes like pyrolysis, right? So the problem is that we require technology, we require investments, and we require the capacity additions of these municipal corporations. So only then we can rapidly scale up the capacities of these local bodies with respect to the waste management of waste treatment. And at the same time, there is a lack of regular waste collection services in certain areas in Delhi. Now, when we do not collect the waste from different areas regularly, so waste is being disposed of at every place, and waste is also not picked up. So that also develops mini landfills in different areas within the Delhi. So therefore, illegal dumping in open areas or water bodies increases the pressure on the municipal body, warranting more resources required or more infrastructure required for the cleanup activities to be taken up. However, there are certain solutions also to manage the waste. So what will be the solutions that we have right now? So they include a number of solutions. They consist of number of solutions. The first solution was the national capital. So that is, Delhi needs to scale up its processing capacity to manage the daily waste. Understand, the problem is that we do not have the adequate capacity to manage the daily waste which is being generated. So when we have adequate capacity to manage daily waste, then the 3,800 tons of waste which is being untreated can also be treated readily and rapidly. So therefore, for this particular purpose, we need to rapidly scale up our infrastructure. And after that, the quantity of waste which is being generated or expected to increase, because the population size of Delhi would expected to increase by 2031. So increase in population actually means that the waste which is being generated by the people will also significantly increase. So therefore, with this particular thing in mind, MCD should design a waste management plan to cater to about 3 crore population of Delhi. And see, whenever the Delhi Municipal Corporation devising any plan, any policy with respect to the waste management and waste treatment, it should keep in mind the 3 crore population of Delhi. Now the population is not 3 crore, but the capacities and the policies of Delhi should be able to cater to the 3 crore population. So it should be prepared to deal with the 3 crore population and the waste which is being generated by 3 crore population. Now because of increasing capacities which could accommodate 3 crore people, even if there is a population increase in future, the MCD, Delhi Municipal Corporation of Delhi, would be able to accommodate increasing population, and that will not create any new problems or new challenges. And after that, the biodegradable wet waste should be composted, or it could be used for generating biogas as well. There are certain anaerobic bacteria. So this anaerobic bacteria can transform the wet waste into the biogas, and this is also a sustainable source of energy, and the municipal corporations can also earn a decent amount of money from this waste to energy conversion plans. And after that, there are also certain non-recyclable dry waste. Okay, so this so that dry waste cannot be recycled readily, and this non-recyclable dry waste fraction is called refuse derived fuel. So it is known as the refuse derived fuel, and it consists of plastics, paper and textile waste. So therefore, this material has good calorific value, and it can be converted into energy through different methods. So all these solutions must be implemented to deal with the waste problem in Delhi. Otherwise, it could create a lot of challenges for the people who are living in Delhi. Now, not just living in Delhi, because see, understand, when the population has been increasing, and the municipal corporation do not have the capacity to manage the increasing waste, or landfills are increasing at every place in Delhi. So that actually creates a lot of problems for the Delhi. So therefore, we have to increase the capacities of waste management. So the next article is with respect to the government need to undertake reforms in certain areas. For example, creation of employment opportunities or gainful employment opportunities for the youth. Now, gainful employment opportunities, why? Because of demographic dividend. So we all knew that India has one of the youngest population. The average age is 28 years. So therefore, we still have 10 more years of demographic window that has to be utilized in a proper manner. And secondly, agriculture remains one of the potential sector where we were not able to double or increase the farmers' income significantly. So our focus should be on bringing in agriculture reforms and shifting excess workforce out of the agriculture sector. Now, when we shift excess workforce out of the agriculture sector, we should have the robust manufacturing or industrial infrastructure, so that could accommodate the population which are based out of the agriculture sector. Now, in this context, the government has to undertake certain reforms or certain measures. We'll understand this in a very brief manner. So the context is that the recent analysis actually highlights a nuanced challenges that Indian economy has been facing. Indian economy actually facing a multiple set of challenges. So that actually creating a lot of troubles for India's growth. So therefore it has been emphasizing there is a need for strategic focus areas for the upcoming government to address, because 18th Lok Sabha polls are being conducted, general election polls are being conducted. So therefore there are multiple set of challenges that the upcoming government should address. So first and foremost focus of the government is to revive the economic growth. So it is very important for the governments to revive the economic growth. But how can we revive economic growth? So we must increase the private investment in the economy. So that is very, very important, because please understand, the government can also make investments into the economy, but there is a red line here. So government investment in the economy has certain limitations because of its social welfare obligations, social welfare expenditure obligations. However, we must attract private investment into our economy, because private investment into infrastructure or private investment in creation of new industries, so that actually creates a lot of opportunities for employment, decent standard of living, and social security and safety nets for the people. So that is why the private investment is very, very important. And in fact we can say that it also boosts India's export. Now we have to achieve the export-led growth. So for that to happen in Indian economy, what have to be done? So one thing that we can do is we have to expand this production linked incentive scheme. So the government actually launched this production linked incentive scheme to boost manufacturing sector in India and attract foreign investment into India. So therefore that could create gainful employment opportunities for the people, and that boost exports out of India, and at the same time it also result in the development of infrastructure. So therefore we need to expand the production linked incentive scheme. And at the same time, the micro, small and medium enterprises are actually the crux of the Indian economy. So they are backbone of the Indian economy. Why? Because they are the largest employment providers in Indian economy, and apart from providing employment opportunities, they have been contributing to around 32% of India's total exports, and they have also been facilitating around 30 to 35% of the total contribution of the India's GDP. So, and because of that reason, so when we are focusing on the private investment, we must look into the micro, small and medium enterprises and the production linked incentive scheme. And after that, the other major thing that we have to look into is household consumption. Now please understand here, household consumption is very, very important in any economy. Now imagine that household consumption is a very high in an economy. Now when consumption is very high in an economy, that indirectly means that there is a higher demand, right? So when there is a higher demand in the economy, then industries or investments actually started coming into the economy, because since when there is no demand for the goods and services, now no one ready to invest in any country. But country with a huge population, we have the potential to create enormous demand in the economy. So because of that demand, we can attract investments, and that could further fuel the private investment. But here in Indian economy, the problem is there is a volatility in the household consumption. Volatility in the household consumption, along with the higher levels of inflation in recent times, especially after the COVID-19 pandemic, actually underscoring or highlighting the need for fiscal measures that have to be undertaken. So these fiscal measures actually increases the disposable income that people have in their hands. Now when people have the disposable income in their hands, so they can spend the money, and that creates a lot of demand in the economy. So for this particular purpose, we must revisit the existing tax rates, because when we slash the taxes, so that could further intensify the investors. and therefore we must revisit the tax rates, and we should also promote savings, because with the savings what happens, so there will be a multiplier effect in the economy with increased savings. If there are no savings, so that would be problematic. That even impacts the private investment also, because now why savings or poor savings impact the private investment? So there is a link here. Now if you save 100 rupees in a bank A, and this 100 rupees in a bank A, so if any investor wants some money, then these 100 rupees will be given to an investor called Z as investment. So this 100 rupees is invested in the economy, right? So that is the advantage of savings in any economy. So therefore promoting savings will facilitate the investment in the economy, instead of you just keeping the money in your locker. So if you keep your money in the bank, so that will actually increases the multiplier effect of the economy, and so that actually creates gainful employment opportunities and enhances the consumption, and it will further stimulate the investment and job creation. So therefore there is always an interconnectedness of economic factors and the role of private sector in employment growth or creation of gainful employment opportunities. So please go through the production linked incentive scheme. All the major details are given in this image. However, apart from that, agriculture is another area, so which actually requires a lot of reforms. Because please understand, in 2020 the government of India actually brought 3 important farm laws, but after 1 year the government scrapped these 3 farm laws because the farmers have been protesting against these farm laws. So therefore the author has been suggesting that we must revisit and debate these contentious farm laws. So what exactly is the issue with these farm laws, and why the farmers are unwilling to support these farm laws? So we must revisit and debate these contentious laws, because even if we bring any reform in future, so the farmers will start protesting against those reforms by the government. And at this present stage, agriculture sector actually requires a lot of reforms. So therefore we must revisit and debate these contentious farm laws, and that is the first step in bringing agriculture reforms. And after that we must explore the government participation in the farming sector through the cooperatives. Now here government can actually play an instrumental role in establishing the cooperatives, agriculture cooperatives. Now agriculture cooperatives actually increases the bargaining power of the group of farmers, and they will also be able to earn a decent amount of income through the farming activities, and therefore government participation must be enhanced through this cooperative farming. And at the same time we must clarify the agriculture trade policies, which are actually essential for fostering stability and efficiency in the agriculture sector. And these agriculture trade policies would actually make India as a food basket, and India would be able to export the food items to other countries. And in future it actually has a lot of potential for India. And after that we should also focus on the global integration of India's supply chains. Now the problem with the COVID-19 pandemic and the problem with the dynamic nature of geopolitics is the supply chain disruption, right? So when supply chains are disrupted, then our economy will also get impacted. Now I'll tell you one example, that India heavily dependent on active pharmaceutical ingredients. So it is one of the key raw material in manufacturing of medicine or generic medicine. So therefore India significantly dependent on China for these active pharmaceutical ingredients. In case if there is any dispute between India and China in future, China stops sending or exporting these active pharmaceutical ingredients to India, and that would actually impact India's pharmaceutical industry. So in order to reduce our dependence on China, we have focused on the supply chain resilience. So therefore we must pursue the free trade agreements and bolster the merchandise exports. So that is actually vital for integrating India into the global supply chains. Okay, so we must integrate India into the global supply chains, and that would help us in complementing the growth trajectory of our service sector. And after that, the fiscal deficit should also be taken care of. The fiscal deficit is also very important. So if we have the higher levels of fiscal deficit, so that could be actually violation of Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act that was earlier passed, and it has also fixed that the fiscal deficit should not exceed 3%. Okay, so we have to achieve the fiscal deficit targets set by the Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act, but at the same time the government must balance the fiscal discipline with the growth imperatives, and at the same time gradually reduce the deficit to 3% of the GDP and start navigating the economic uncertainties at the domestic level and global level, and also prioritize certain sectors. Okay, so these are some of the reforms that actually required at this present stage for Indian economy, so that we can be able to achieve the higher levels of growth, and at the same time we will be able to maintain the very same levels of growth rate. And that is very important, and at the same time we should also look for creating more and more employment opportunities for India's youth. Now next article is with respect to Chief of Defence Staff, right? So this is with respect to Chief of Defence Staff. Now the article, so this news issue is that, has the Chief of Defence Staff post improved India's combat efficiency? Now the Chief of Defence Staff, so as a post, was created in 2020, right? So it was created in 2020 to make sure that we the Chief of Defence Staff actually integrate all the tri-services. Okay, so there will be an integration and jointly work with all these three service theaters. Now the context is that recent reports actually suggesting that there are discussions within the Indian Armed Forces about the restructuring of integrated theater commands. Now we'll understand what is this integrated theater commands, but now we are looking for the integration of theater commands, and the integration of theater commands also see the appointments of Vice Chief of Defence Staff, Deputy Chief of Defence Staff, highlighting the evolving nature of India's higher defense management. Okay, now what are these theater commands? We'll understand this briefly. Now we have tri-services, so they are Army, Navy and Air Force, and other military assets that we have already possessed. Now all these tri-services manpower under one operational commander in a geographical region. In India, we have only one tri-service command or one theater command, integrated theater command, that is at the Andaman and Nicobar Island. Okay, so there will be no separation, so they will not work in silos, rather so they work in an integrated manner. So whatever capacities or whatever assets we have, so all the assets will be combined and they work together, and that is known as the theater command. Now if you look at the different countries theater commands, US actually has 11 unified combatant commands, and 6 are geographic to handle the different parts of the globe. So that includes Indo-Pacific Command, so that actually covers entire Asia Pacific including India. And apart from that, US also has 5 functional commands. So they will handle nuclear arsenal, special operations, space, cyberspace, transport and mobility. And not just US, even China has also reorganized its 2.3 million People's Liberation Army into 5 theater commands as early as in 2016. Right? So if we talk about China's the Western Theater Command of China, so that actually handles entire line of control. So line of control is actually a demarcation line between India and China. right? So this Western Theatre Command of China actually handles the line of actual control with India from Eastern Ladakh to Arunachal Pradesh. Now in a similar way, we should also have the theatre commands, and in this theatre commands, CDS actually plays a very important and very prominent role, right? So the global geopolitical dynamics are changing, the warfare, the nature of warfare is also changing. Now because of this reason, Indian armed forces should also be more dynamic in nature, and they should adopt the changes, they should change themselves, and the integrated theatre command actually integrate all the assets of the tri-services, thereby putting a further strengthened front against enemy untoward incident. Right now, this Chief of Defence Staff of Indian Armed Forces is actually the head and the highest ranking officer of the Indian Armed Forces. Okay, so he is actually the highest ranking officer of the Indian Armed Forces. Now, who is the commander in chief or supreme commander? President is known as the supreme commander of the armed forces, but not the chief of defense staff. However, the chief of defense staff is the military chief. He is the military chief executive, and he also has or with operational and strategic authority over the defense forces and not its commander. The commander is president only. Now the first chief of defense staff was General Bipin Rawat. Okay, so he was the first chief of defense staff India has. He assumed office on 1st January 2020. Unfortunately, he was died in a aircraft crash. So after General Bipin Rawat, Lieutenant General Anil Chauhan was appointed as the next Chief of Defence Staff on September 28, 2022. So however, his appointment was contested because he was appointed immediately, so therefore because of that reason his appointment was under scrutiny. And apart from that, this CDS will also function as a secretary to the Government of India, Department of Military Affairs. So these are brief details about the Chief of Defence Staff. Now in this image you can clearly see why India requires an integrated theatre commands. Okay, so such theatre commands are actually cost effective. Okay, so cost effective in the sense that they actually save resources, and at the same time they always prepare the forces for integrated land, air, sea operations. Because of the changing nature of warfare, our armed forces should be prepared for integrated land, sea and air operations, and that can be achieved by integrating Army, Navy and Air Force, and that is the first and foremost advantage of the integrated theatre command. And second advantage is that it will help in right sizing almost 1.5 million strong armed forces. Now see, we are just reorganizing our army so that it will be suitable for India's interests, to deal with India's enemies in a much more effective manner, and that will help us reorganize around 1.5 million strong armed forces who are actually starved of funds for modernization due to defense budget being hit by a ballooning pay and pension bills. So that is another reason. The third reason was India has 17 single service commands. So they include Army 7, Indian Air Force 7 and Navy 3, and only 2 unified commands. So this will be the another reason that has been strongly supporting the setting up integrated theatre commands. And after that, the Andaman and Nicobar command set up in October 2001 is the only theatre command. Okay, so I've already told you that this Andaman and Nicobar theatre command is the only theatre command that was established in 2001. And Strategic Forces Command set up in January 2003 to handle the nuclear arsenal. Okay, so this was the reason why India requires an integrated commands. However, there are certain challenges and trajectory of the CDS post. Now, what are the challenges? So the challenges actually include the origins and expectations from the post of CDS, because the CDS as a post was created under the Prime Minister. So therefore, the CDS post is actually intended to address the lack of jointness, because see, Army, Navy and Air Force are actually working in silos. Okay, so they're working separately, not jointly, but this CDS actually integrate Army, Navy and Air Force, and therefore working or making them work in a jointness. So that was actually lacking in the armed forces, and at the same time it will also provide the central authority for the strategic coordination among all these armed forces. However, recently we have faced strategic setbacks. So strategic setbacks in the sense that General Bipin Rawat was the first CDS. So he was unfortunately passed away in 2021, and that has led to the disruption of policies, leaving initiatives incomplete with respect to the creation of Integrated Theatre Command for India. Subsequent appointment of Lieutenant General Anil Chauhan, he was retired, was met with the scrutiny. So why it was met with the scrutiny? Because an unprecedented decision to recall a retired officer for this role of the Chief of Defence Staff, and because of that reason it hits a scrutiny. Okay, now the proposed structural changes and the future outlook of the CDS. So what kind of changes that are actually proposed in this CDS? So we have to enhance the jointness within the CDS, because the envisaged creation of this new post, Chief of Defence Staff, along with the Vice Chief of Defence Staff. So these posts actually aims to bolster jointness between Army, Navy and Air Force, and at the same time rapidly increase or strengthen the combat capability of our military forces. So essentially it will focus on improving the operational efficiency of our forces. However, apart from that, there are certain challenges, and we also require caution with respect to the Chief of Defence Staff, and at the same time setting up an Integrated Theatre Command. So the proposed restructuring actually means significant changes in rank hierarchy and command responsibilities. Okay, so it is actually a time consuming process. The reforms are actually time consuming in nature, and there is a need for consensus building as well. So after that, the role refinement is also very important, because suggestions have been made to streamline the CDS responsibilities, potentially delegating bureaucratic duties to Vice Chief of Defence Staff to allow CDS to focus on strategic and operational roles. Now here, why CDS actually important, or why CDS matters? Now there are certain problems, and in order to address those problems there are certain solutions as well. So you can go through these problems and solutions. Now what are the existing problems, and how CDS can address these problems? Because see, now present chiefs of Army, Navy, Air Force, so they are looking after both operational and administrative responsibilities. They are assuming both operational responsibilities and administrative responsibilities. So but they're not able to devote time as a chairman, chiefs of staff committees. However, so when we have established the Chief of Defence Staff, a full-time Chief of Defence Staff, the senior most of 3 chiefs will actually administer the tri-service institutions, and also increases the cooperation among these services. So these are the advantages of establishing or setting up the Chief of Defence Staff. So the next very important article is with respect to the elusive red panda, which was spotted in the Eagle Nest Wildlife Sanctuary. Now understand, this Eagle Nest Wildlife Sanctuary is located in the Arunachal Pradesh of Northeast India. Okay, so these elusive red pandas were recently captured in the Eagle West Wildlife Sanctuary. Now you can see the highlighted section is the habitat of the red pandas in the eastern Himalayas. So that also includes China as well. Now if we can briefly talk about these red pandas, the common name is red panda and the scientific name is Alurus fulgens. So it was its scientific name, and the habitat and the range of these red pandas is including eastern Himalayas and also the southwest China. Okay, so now why these red pandas are facing threat? It is because hunting, habitat destruction, limited food supply, and predators. So these are the major challenges, and because of that reason the red panda is considered as the endangered species. So what constitutes the major diet of these red pandas? They eat bamboos, fruits, eggs, and insects. However, so if you look at the global population of these red pandas, so 50% decline in the global population of red panda in last 20 years, and at the same time the total number of population of red panda is as few as 2500 in the wild. Now scientific name, as I have already told you, is Alurus flugens. And in fact this red panda is a rare and endangered mammal, and it is actually known for its vibrant red and white fur, and it is often called as the fire fox. So the red panda is very often called as, or it was very often known as, the fire fox. So what was the habitat of this red panda? So the habitat of this red panda includes, it is an elusive creatures, and they are native to the eastern Himalayas, and they very often inhabiting the dense forests of India, Nepal, Bhutan, Myanmar, China. So this is their primary habitat, and at the same time they prefer to live in dense forests with bamboo, thriving at altitudes of 2200 to 4800 meters. So what was the total population? So the global population is less than 10,000 individuals, and the red panda actually faces a serious threat of extinction in the wild, and we have understood the reasons. What were the reasons that red panda has been facing threats? So hunting, poaching, habitat destruction, predators, and food was lacking. So all these factors. Now International Union for Conservation of Nature has categorized red panda as an endangered species, and apart from that we also have the Wildlife Protection Act, so that protects both flora and fauna from the threats that they have been facing. So the Wildlife Protection Act actually categorized red panda as the Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act. So that actually means it enjoys the highest degree of protection, and in fact the red panda also receives the highest legal protection here. So the red panda is also the state animal of Sikkim, because the red panda holds the title the state animal of Sikkim, where annual red panda festival is hosted to raise awareness about their conservation and protection of red pandas, and it is also important. Okay, so that's all for today, and thank you so much. So if you like this video, please like it and also subscribe to our YouTube channel, and thank you so much. We'll meet again tomorrow. Thank you.